Chapter 2. Comfort, Consolation, and Hardship. The Kamedake came into its dedicated dock on the outer ring of the academy. "Everything checks out fine, Captain," said Tenio, Hakurin, and Irma. "Well then I'm getting off the ship." Sena got off and ran toward the dock's control room. Sena was taken by Tenio and Irma into a small medical room. The Kamedake could be seen from there. The Kamedake was about to descend into the lower deck aquarium. It was the same sight Sena had seen happen with the ship he rode to first get to the academy. "Sena, stand here." "Oh, right." Sena went up to the table of biological scanner while looking at the Kamedake. Sena received a physical examination and hundreds of questions he answered over a few hours. "How's he, Irma?" Tenio asked when the questioning was over. "He's a little fatigued, but everything else is all right with his body and mind. Everything is within tolerance. There are no abnormalities." "Okay then." Tenio looked at Sena and smiled. Sena noticed that the Kamedake, which could be seen from the window, had gotten down safely into the aquarium and had been there for several hours. "It's okay. The level of technology we have here is far more advanced than those at the general docks." Sena breathed a sigh of relief and Tenio let out a small laugh. "Oh, is that maybe because of?" "Of course it is, Irma. Because it was an unusual case, it was reported quite heavily, but at that time, I didn't know that Sena was involved." "Well, he was." Suddenly the door opened and someone came in. "Good morning, Sena-chan. At last we meet." Tenio couldn't see the woman's face, but her voice was well known by Tenio. "Is that?" The woman hugged her chest up to Sena's head. Sena was initially worried because he had been unable to hold his breath long enough and had been suffocated by a woman's breasts before, but the feeling of her chest was so soft and glamorous that he forgot his worries altogether quite quickly. "Hey, stop that. What do you think you're doing?" Tenio got up and pulled Sena away from her. Sena looked up to see another Tenio's face, but there was a crater punched into it, and the impact had changed the surface of her skin to a familiar pearl luster. "Oh, it's just NB." Tenio had punched NB in the face quite hard after it transformed into her. She kicked NB again with a lot of force. "If you really are Arisama's invention, then I know you'll be persistent. Even if everyone got together and crushed you, you'd just be rebuilt." Tenio said as she approached the NB. She took out something that looked like a black pen. "Sena, close your eyes for a while." "Oh, right." Sena closed his eyes. "No, don't thrust such things in such places." He heard the voice of NB Tenio cry. Sena desperately covered his ears to block out the sound and thought about something to block it out. A few minutes later, Tenio tapped him on his shoulder. Sena knew it was over. "Master, why did they beat me?" "I did nothing wrong." NB jumped into Sena's arms. Irma had turned bright red after seeing what was done to NB. "I was just running Tenio's personal data file." "What did I do wrong?" "Oh, that makes it okay since Eri must have made one for you too recently and put it on NB. She made one for me and all of the other girls living with Sena as well," Irma said. Tenio seemed curious. "Oh, really? I bet Amain and Jaikiran were amazing, right?" "Yes, but it's kind of funny. Kariko punched NB just like you did." "Well, Arisama's character data is remarkably inappropriate for Sena's education. Of course, that's why I deleted all the data from the NB. But everything except the character data was incredibly well made, so everyone saved a copy of it." "I'm sorry, Sena-chan, but do you mind if I do that too?" "Huh. I'll keep the simplified version in place instead of the one with the crazy character data that Eri put in." Well, that's kind of, why? Don't you want to be a little bit familiar with me before the actual performance?" "What?" "No." Sena was not at all interested in that. The fact that she suggested it felt like she was making a mockery of Tenchi's mother, Kion. "Oh, don't you like me, Sena?" Sena didn't know why Tenio was looking at him such a sad look or why she wanted him to practice on NB, and frankly, he was afraid to ask. "He will be doing no such thing. And to keep your data from somehow being leaked, I'm deleting it." Truly, Tenio seemed not to want to run the risk that Eri's all-too-accurate personal data would be leaked. She just thought that she wanted Sena to use it, but after thinking about it for a while, she deleted the data from NB. "Well, I know I'm not as pretty as Jaikirin or a main, but are you sure you don't want it? No, thank you. Why? That is taking things a bit far, don't you think? It's just. Well, why do you think I would want to practice anything like that? Sena decided to just finally ask about the situation. And, why exactly does Eri keep putting these on NB? Oh, I see. Tenio understood what Sena was embarrassed about. Well, from the perspective of an Earthling, it certainly is strange. But Irma, is what I was trying to do so strange? Eh? I think that how you went about recommending it was a bit forced. That's funny for her to say when she tried to give me those friendship folders. Maybe, is this just the natural way of thinking at the academy? It seemed so to Sena, but he felt a sense of incongruity there. Well, if Kuriko knew, she would definitely scold you. Kuriko-chan, yeah, I can see that. Tenio sat beside Sena and put her hand on his shoulder. Kuriko-chan wants Sena-chan's first time all for herself. Sena turned red and got embarrassed. You're so cute, Sena. I won't force the subject anymore. I'll ask you again once you get to know more about what it means to go into outer space. Means to go into outer space? It's not a big deal for you now, Sena. It's okay if you don't understand. It's okay, because Kuriko-chan is keeping you down to earth. He didn't understand what Tenio meant, but he understood that it was better not to judge with his limited knowledge. He also appreciated that it wasn't necessary for him to discuss any more embarrassing topics. Unlike Amain and Jaikirin, Tenio was a different part of his life. Oh yeah, Sena, your teammates called. Huh, you mean Kenneth and Rajo? It's going to take a bit for us to run the Kamidake's checks and maintenance, so tomorrow you're free to go have fun with your friends, and NB can help you find your way to your dormitory, so please take your time going home today. She said as she smiled and gave the adjusted NB for Sena. Yes, but what about Kuriko? They have their own jobs to do. It's fine, they already know your schedule. Please take your time going and coming. I understand. Sena bowed and went out of the room with NB. A woman at Tenio's side dropped her subspace camouflage and materialized. I saw her earlier. Is she a Kuramitsu? Irma thought as she put some distance from her. She observed the woman while pretending to work. The woman with blonde hair, brown skin, blue eyes, was wearing clothes like Kuriko had worn when she fought Tarrant. Her hair was cut short like a main's, and her entire body was incredibly springy to the point that it bounced from even a small gesture. She looks like one, but the reason that Irma judged her as part of the Kuramitsu family was not only her appearance, but also her atmosphere that was charming, even though she had on a serious expression. She had the same atmosphere as Sito and Eri, who were both the most elite of the top class. Eventually, she finished her work. She stopped and smiled at Irma. Just like a fan being stared by a star, Irma turned bright red and froze up. She could not remove her eyes from the woman's gaze. Her blue eyes sucked her in. Thank you. The woman smiled and said to Tenio, then she disappeared into subspace again. Irma, who had been sucked in, felt off balance as if she had vertigo suddenly, and she hurried to put her hand on the edge of the console. Oh, who was that just now? Irma stared at the direction where the woman had disappeared. She was overwhelmed. Shit, I understand. Tenio hit her on the shoulder. I'll tell you in a bit, are you okay? Haha, yeah. What was with that talk you gave a little while ago? Hey Irma, when are you going to give Sena the birds and the bees? Probably not for a while. Is that so? Don't you think it's about time? Sena couldn't even understand what I was saying to him. How's he going to know about all the different customs that various people have here? It's not that big of a deal. Sena is still a minor anyways. Besides, I'm afraid of Kuriko. But what if Eri tries to do it first? Well, that is a valid concern, you may be right. Irma said. Well then, go ahead and do it. Tenio pushed Irma's shoulder like one would push a button and returned to work. Sena took NB and went back to the Academy planet for the first time in several months. It was still early in the morning when he arrived from the outer ring to the transfer port at the GP Academy. Oh, Sena. Here. Kenneth and Rajo were waiting for him in the back of the small parking lot of the building with the transfer port. Sena was pulled into a small air car by Rajo. Okay, let's go. Whoa. Sena's body was pressed against the rear seat of the air car, which suddenly sped off roughly. Don't be unhappy, Kenneth. Haha, but we only have one day together. We can't waste a single moment, Kenneth smiled. Once he was accustomed to the inertia, Sena got up and sat down properly in his seat. The roof of the air car opened, and the smell of cold wind and damp trees in the morning came in. Kenneth, there is a patrol car 1 kilometer behind us. NB approached Kenneth and said, What? Why are they out this early in the morning? A few seconds after Kenneth dropped his speed, the GP patrol car approached. In it was Officer Carroll and Officer Amelie, the officers they had encountered the night when they escaped from the dormitory. Hey, you're those brats. Officer Carroll shouted as she hung out from the back window. She noticed Sena in the back seat. By George, that's Sena Yamada. Oh! Officer Amelie, who was driving, pulled Officer Carroll into the car and made a sudden screeching U-turn and sped off in the opposite direction. God damn it, I hate you brats. We'll let you go today, but keep to the legal speed. Officer Carroll shouted over the car's loudspeaker as they ran off quickly. Who was that woman? Haha. That violent voice can only be that policewoman who fired at us when we broke out of the dorm that one time. Oh, I nearly forgot about that. I'll never understand people like that. Kenneth and Rajo laughed. Sena next to them knew the detailed circumstances, and so he was looking at the GP patrol car that ran away with a slightly awkward look. Well, it can't be helped. The wind hit Sena's face and he stopped and took a deep breath. He could smell the ocean as the trees and mountains that covered the landscape disappeared behind him. A city appeared in Sena's field of vision. Wow! It was City 773. The city that they went to that one night to go to the Imuum party. The city shone of silver as a result of the morning sun hitting it, and it had a different beauty about it than it had when they saw it at night. They arrived in the city and got out of the air car in a parking lot at the base of the outside of a monorail station where they took an elevator to the upper floor. Sena, here it is, Rajo said. He went through the ticket gate and jumped onto the monorail that had stopped at the very end. Before Sena's eyes was a monorail car that had no car body visible where it was supposed to be, and so the blue sky and sea were visible all around. Sena reflexively touched the handrail near the entrance with his hand. Crack! The handrail broke and Sena remembered the feeling of being thrown into the air. But he felt a loud noise and a dull pain to the head. Sena's body stopped suddenly. Oh, did you do that? Well, this is Sena's first time getting on something like this, Kenneth and Rajo laughed. Oh, is that? Sena looked around and noticed that the car frame was made out of an invisible material and wasn't just an open platform like he had thought. He had hit his head on the invisible walls of the car. Underneath him, the base of the city and sea, which was making white waves, was visible. Oh! The glass was so transparent that it couldn't even be judged whether it existed or not. Sena held in his fear of falling over and retreated away from the wall. Sena, over here. Rajo pulled Sena's clothes and sat him on a seat on the entrance side wall while the monorail started to move. Ahaha, I was just surprised, that's all. This is the quickest route to where we're going. How is it? Isn't the view nice? It's pretty nice. Since there are so many buildings near here, flying is prohibited. So this is all scenery that you can't see unless you ride this car, plus it's high up. So it's quite a thrill. It runs 24 hours a day. Sunrise, sunset, and the late-night cityscape is also very pretty, and so it's also a nice date spot. Oh, it certainly feels nice. The monorail was spirally circling towards the center of the city. Now, land was visible in front of Sena, and the buildings were visible at his feet. I can certainly feel the height, Sena said, looking down. The monorail stopped at various stations on the way before it arrived at the last stop. There was only a very simple gate at the station. As he passed through the gate, a large symmetrical garden filled with white domes appeared in front of his eyes. Is this a cemetery? Sena intuitively thought. A severe air flowed in that place, and it felt isolated from the hustle and bustle of the urban area. Sena, let's go. No, Rajo and Kenneth started walking towards the dome with a somber appearance. Sena felt from their atmosphere that his guess was correct. I don't know how things go on your planet, Sena, but most of the people on the academy have solar burials. Rajo said quietly. Solar burial? So their remains are… Well, if the sun is your tomb, then those on the planet. No matter where you go in Galactic Federation space, you can almost always see it. They climbed the stairs and entered a large dome-shaped building with a domed ceiling. It was somewhat dim inside. However, on the ceiling many stars were visible. The sun of the academy also appeared as a big sphere. And there were people there praying at the stars. Oh! Kenneth and Rijo simultaneously said. Mickey's teammates Miranda and Kalichi were there looking up at the academy's sun while saluting. The boys were behind their line of sight. Sana, who saw them, realized that this was a memorial for Mickey. Sana stood next to Miranda and saluted the sun of the academy in the same way. Mickey was not buried in the sun. The bodies couldn't be collected from the incident on the space station. So the survivors and friends of the deceased decided the sun should be used as the grave marker of each deceased person. Sana thought of what he would like to say to Mickey, but decided that Mickey, who was energetically positive and optimistic, wouldn't want him dwell on it, but rather be determined for the future. I'll do my best. After finishing his prayers, Sana talked with Miranda in the outside garden about the recent situation. They were relieved that Sana was doing fine, and they were very pleased to hear he had become a captain. And he learned from them that Mickey's father's lab had been repaired, and that he had been invited to work with a prestigious research team. After getting reacquainted with Miranda and Kalichi, he had to leave to prepare for practical training. Sana's friends waved goodbye as they left to get on the monorail until they disappeared from sight. They sure busy. While they already have concrete plans for themselves after graduation, they have to finish practical training and become professionals accordingly. Hey, should we have gone with them? That's the way to the first train station. We have other places to go. Kenneth went down the stairs to the parking lot. There was a very ordinary vehicle parked there. As Sana got in, the vehicle started to move without a driver. Hey Rijo, is there really a soul? Sana asked Rijo sitting beside him. Soul? Rijo looked at him with a strange look. Sana realized that the concept of a soul was an earth thing. Oh, that is, how should I explain? The thing that lives inside humans, even if the body dies, it stays around. You mean like reincarnation? Yeah, something like that. That's a common concept in the early civilizations. But it's not quite like that. Rijo said in an ambiguous way. Huh. I don't know how it's thought of where you come from, Sana, but what you call a soul sounds like what we call an astral here. An astral. I don't know much about it, and indeed, it seems that there are various problems with the subject. The research on it hasn't advanced so much. Rijo looked at Sana for a bit. To that extent, there are times when what we do know conflicts with the views of various religions. Rijo said with confusion. It was like the conflict between the flat earth and center of the universe theory and the round earth and sun in the center debate of the Middle Ages on Earth. I have no such problems, so it's okay. Is that so? Rijo started talking on the subject. There is also the theory that we are present in almost all dimensions, and there is a thing called the astral sea that overlaps every dimension. Changes in this world cause changes to the astral sea, whether it's natural formations, or when substances are formed in our world, or organisms are born. It seems that similar places are formed in the astral sea, whether they are people or substances. Memories are recorded of them in the sea, such as that thing's experiences or personality. Like it's stored in memory? Yes, and when the person here dies, the thing disappears, but the memorized things remain in the astral sea without disappearing. That was the cause of the idea of reincarnation, because there is a memory feedback phenomenon that happens due to similarity of the astral form. Can you read that memory? Is there another person born with it? In other words, each individual astral is sort of the same thing as a blood type or your genes, but that's what, actually, please take it from here, Rijo. Kenneth was trying to show off his knowledge, but he could not put it in clear words, and so he backed off. Yes, but the astral form is far more complicated than the combination of the base sequences of DNA, so we don't really know the rules that govern it just yet. But we do know that a small part of the astral form is used like an access terminal that intersects the astral sea, and I think that it is easier to understand if you think of it like a modem connecting to a network. Accordingly, astrals can share similar parts, even just very slightly, but as for the memory that I mentioned earlier, the memories of the astral sea will remain, even if the body disappears. Memory feedback sometimes occurs, and the memories of the past life occurs because of this memory feedback. When you think about it, the astral sea may be said to be the world after death. To be sure, the astral sea has the memories and personalities of all the lives that the astral had been born into so far, so Kenneth, what you said, wasn't a mistake. Really. However, it is impossible for someone to revive a certain person, Rajo said as if he had read Sena's mind. Even cloned individuals do not have the same astral pattern as the original. There's nothing even similar about them, and it is relatively easy to measure the astral pattern. But the problem is you need tremendous energy to reproduce and fix it into another body. Although with organ transplants, memory feedback can occur pretty easily. Maybe if you were a god you'd have a chance. It was an unrealistic thing for him to say. Sena checked to make sure that Kenneth's face was serious. Rajo shrugged his shoulders with a wry smile. That's not a joke. There are plenty of theories as to why the astral sea was made and how it was created. Washu Hakubi theorized that the astral sea was made to be a system to create God. There are memories from space and time since creation in there. There is no guarantee that scientific technology has reached its highest peak now at the current academy. Somewhere else in the universe, or maybe in prehistory, there may have been more advanced civilizations. The astral sea has all of those memories, and it's definitely omniscient. Certainly, I suppose it would be. So there are many people trying to use the knowledge in the astral sea right now. When they become able to freely read the memory from the astral sea, which has stored everything that has happened in the universe from the past to the present, it will be of unlimited value to us. Right now, we can't even imagine what the future is past a simple simulation level of prediction. Sadly, those who are trying to do that aren't really friendly with each other. I don't know for sure, but it is natural to think that the astral sea, an aggregate of knowledge, has some sort of will of its own, don't you think? Rajo noticed a wryly smiling Sena. Sorry, is something funny? Funny. Ha ha ha. Maybe Sena is just surprised to get such a strangely scientific answer to such a theological question. I see. I'm sorry, it's just a lot to take in. Yeah, well, although the deceased's consciousness and memory are stored in the astral sea, their death is irreparable. Okay. In the meantime, this place serves as a place of prayer for us to reaffirm our purpose and attitude as members of the GP, and to hope that they will return in the next life as a human being. I see. The monorail arrived at the station. Kenneth and Rajo got off with Sena and headed to the city. Sena was taken by Kenneth to a familiar coffee shop. That was where he had first come across Widow. First of all, let's celebrate being reunited safely. Kenneth and Rajo clinked glasses. While drinking cold juice, Sena looked around. The city was completely repaired, and while there were scars from what had been destroyed, he didn't see any dust or rubble. By the way, Sena, how's the captain business? Even if I'm a captain, it's a very simple route. I'm basically just testing the ship. Still, that's awesome. It's training only. You never know about the future. So modest. It's not every day one gets to skip training and become a captain. Yeah, you're doing a great job, Sena. Thank you. Kenneth and Rajo were pleased with Sena, which made him happy. And we won't be able to spend another day like this together for a while, so let's party hard. Oh! Let's go somewhere fun with Captain Sena. You're paying. What? Of course we will also pay a little. But you can treat us right. For example, you can start by getting us in here. Oh yeah, this is where they held the Amuim party. I hear they're accepting new members now. Kenneth handed him a fancy pamphlet he had gotten from the front desk. Looking at the entry fees and the annual membership dues written on it made Sena a bit dizzy. The admission fee was enough to buy a few luxury cars, and the annual fee was enough to buy a house. Hey, I don't have such an inconvenient amount of money. And I haven't even gotten paid yet. Is that so? Aren't you special, though? How have they not paid you yet? I don't have it. Damn, what the hell? Kenneth broke the pamphlet, and he was so disappointed that he slumped his entire body in depression. Well, we will just have to wait until Sena's salary comes out. You're joking, right? Instead of answering Sena's question, Kenneth began to think about something while looking away from Sena. By the way, how much is Sena's salary? I don't know. They haven't told me. What? Did you accept the job without hearing their offer? There was no choice. They gave me no other options. Oh, I know master's salary, said Envy, who had been silent for such a long time everyone forgot it was there. It got on the table and presented the amount. Kenneth and Rajo opened their mouths in amazement. You lie. That's more than 3 times our pay rate. You have that much? It's not that much, is it? That's right. It's only 3 times as much as the bottom guy. What do we have to live for in the future? Even if we become a captain, our salary will only triple. Kenneth and Rajo looked like they were about to cry. This is just the basic pay. There are various fringe benefits, and allowances and bonuses are often given based on performance. Is that true? Well, yes. Master is still a trainee, so I guess it doesn't matter all that much. What? Oh, is Immuum doomed to forever be just a dream? Kenneth leaned against the chair as if he was going to collapse again. I don't have any interest in Immuum, and I have to live on that salary when I get it, so I can't waste it. How can you have no dreams? Wasting money is a privilege of youth. I can't afford to do that. Besides, what if I get hurt? Well, I guess it can't be helped when you consider Seina's special situation. Well then, I suppose we're going to have to spend the day as poor students like we originally planned. Seina, you didn't actually get to come here from school with us all that much, so there are plenty of places you don't know about, right? Right. Let's show him all the cool spots. Kenneth recovered quickly from his disappointment. He drank the rest of his juice and dragged Seina with him as he left the coffee shop. Students' way of enjoying things were not much different in space from how they were on the Earth. They checked out their favorite stores and ate at a cheap restaurant in a back alley and talked about eating and shopping. And hitting on girls they met on the street. Seina was walking through the labyrinth-like city while eating a frozen dessert similar to ice cream that he had bought at a stand when he came to a square where several terraces were installed in big trees. They sat on a vacant bench and licked the frozen dessert with empty eyes. In other words, they were sad that their attempts to pick up girls had failed. I thought this was supposed to be a happening place to go. No way is this cause of Seina. Kenneth sighed. In this city, which was near the GP Academy, many people knew about Seina. And the riot caused by him, so there weren't many people trying to approach them. When sunset over the city started and night was on its way, there would be some people who would have loved to get close to Seina, but unfortunately for them it was still early morning. How about you? Why are you being so gloomy? That's why girls aren't flocking towards us. Yeah. If you put on a bright smile, I bet it would reverse your probability vector, and our success with the ladies will increase. Oh, yeah. Don't forget, Seina, you're famous. Thanks for the first half of what you just said. Despite their words of comfort, he was still feeling gloomy. Maybe if they see us already with someone, they will be drawn to us. Hey, Seina, did you ever figure out if NB could transform? Yes, NB can do that. He remembered his interaction with NB Tenio the day before. Oh, then it has deforming features. Let's transform it with some personal data. Kenneth said. Hey, Seina, do you know how to use it? No, I haven't used it. I just figured you'd know how to. The two of them slid up to him and looked at him slyly. Come on, you can tell us. Who did you turn it into, Professor Amain or maybe Miss Kariko? Why do you assume it was someone I live with? Oh, was it someone else? Stop it. Seina shouted to push the two back. Their hounding ceased. Chicken. There are some people who have asked me to use their personal data, but for me it's kind of strange. Why? You're just using it to study them. I understand what you mean somehow. On Earth when we do that we use pictures. Seina said shyly. Kenneth and Rajo looked embarrassed. Seina-kun, we're sorry for being insensitive toward your probability bias. You don't know what personal data is used for, do you? Huh? I can't believe it! Kenneth burst out into tears laughing. Huh? What? He doesn't know. I'm so glad I've lived long enough to have to explain this to someone. Ha ha ha, I remember when my aunt's friend gave me hers. This is too funny. Rajo also laughed hard. Rajo, was your aunt's friend pretty? No, she was super ugly. Ha 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 ha, poor Rajo. The two laughed till they cried with their arms on each other's shoulder. The curious eyes of people around them focused on them. Seina was wondering when they would stop. What seemed like 30 minutes passed before they stopped. No, Seina, it's not for that. It's so you can learn to separate yourself from your desire and handle a woman right. Basically, they're for dating simulation. At least when they're given to minors, they attach ethical character software to them so nothing funny goes on. They do it to the ones for women too. Think of it like a fake baby they give you to raise in school to teach you responsibility. The personal character AI is elaborately programmed, but you'll notice fixed patterns after you mess with them a while. The basic program gets monotonous really quickly, and it isn't very good looking, so people customize it with others' appearance and personality data. Rijo said. In other words, Tenio tried to give him her personal data to teach him how to treat a girl. So he wouldn't get bored with the basic program. It's still a little unusual though, Sena tentatively concluded. So, have you gotten any personal data yet? No. Well, I didn't accept any, because I didn't understand the way of thinking in this world. Who tried to give it to you? Kenneth sat up with an interesting expression. Was it Professor Amain or Ms. Kariko? Don't tell me it was Chairwoman Eri. What? Oh, was that the right answer? Ha. If she ever offered, I'd definitely refuse. I can't believe she gave you such a thing. Ha. Kenneth laughed and banged his fist on the upper part of NB. Who would say that kind of thing? Eri is a cute girl, NB said. Oh, are you seriously saying that? Oh, Kenneth, this NB is from Eri's workshop. That's probably why it's saying that. Rijo said. Wow. Did she really program it to do that? I'm just stating the facts. Eri is a beautiful woman with a good head. You would say that. She'd be more attractive if she didn't have such an unreasonable personality. Kenneth and Rijo and Sena nodded deeply at that statement. Those who heard Sena's conversation nearby laughed. NB could not refute the situation. Rijo's opinion had silenced him. So, what are we going to do then? Rijo asked. Well, what about that folder I put on NB? Kenneth, that was you. I had to put my collection on there once I saw the material NB was made of. Indeed, it's top of the line. The two looked at NB with strange eyes and NB retreated a bit. Think about it, we can try out the latest technology with this NB. Hey, Sena. They looked at Sena clearly with indecent thoughts in their head. Well, sadly the data Kenneth put on was found by Kariko and was deleted. The whole thing. Yeah, all of it. Although Irma was actually the one who deleted all the illegal data Kenneth put on there that they wanted to use. Damn, well then, access my server, and we'll download it back on. That will be impossible. Since they found it, they disabled the software from being launched or installed by anyone without approval of an instructor. NB said. Well, I'm out of ideas then. Kenneth and Rijo drooped their shoulders. I'm glad Tenio deleted her data. It was then, on the terrace just above them, that he heard someone angry and screaming and heard a leafy crunching sound. This is bad. Sena thought to himself. He felt a great shock to his head and he lost consciousness. A woman's face was in front of Sena and was looking at him when he woke up. She was the woman who appeared in the room when they did the physical examination yesterday, but of course Sena himself didn't know about it. He looked around in confusion before looking away from the woman. As a result, he found out that he was sitting on a bed in what looked like a hotel room somewhere, and that the woman looking at him was standing over him. He felt her breasts poke him. Are you okay? Does anything hurt? The woman applied her right hand to Sena's head and forced him towards her. Sena said, I'm okay. Would you please give me a minute of... that's... The woman kept staring at Sena. As she ignored him, her weight was barely felt on him even though she was right up on him. Are you from the Kuramitsu family? Sena continued talking to her as he was desperate to break the tension of the scene. She was beautiful and sexy, like Amain and Jaikurin. But while something about Amain and Jaikurin made him naturally panic, she did not. Sena figured it must be a natural thing since Matoto and Mahoshi had both always failed to be detected by Sena's crisis avoidance instinct. He said louder, but the woman paid him no mind. Huh? Oh, sorry. The woman finally noticed and slowly and gracefully left Sena and sat down in a chair nearby. The now liberated Sena quickly raised his upper body, hiding his lower half with a soft comforter. He had to get some distance from the lady. Where are we and who are you? There's no reason to be shy, boy. If I was going to do anything with you, I was already in a position where I could have done it. She said, ignoring Seina's question. She stared at his lower body and smiled. She kind of reminds me of Eri or Sito, Seina thought. The woman noticed his expression. I'm sorry. I guess I should explain the situation. She began to talk with a strong and passionate voice. Seina, the reason why you fainted was that I was fighting a man who was following me and I accidentally hit him too hard and he fell out of the tree and fell on top of you. Oh, okay, that makes sense. But why did you take me here? In most cases like this, I usually wake up at some hospital. Well, Seina, your envy told me to take you here so it could check to see if you had a concussion. So don't worry. Is that so? But, where is here? Seina looked left and right for clues in his line of sight as to where he was. From how the room was decorated, it looked like a love hotel, but he knew that it only looked that way by the Earth standards. It might just be a normal hotel. The universe sure is weird. It's just what you think it is, Seina. The woman shattered his expectations and left him pale as she smiled. Seina regained his composure and quickly tried to run to the exit. However, the woman sensed his intentions and quickly seized him with a hug. Your response is valid, but you should do a little more to hide the intentions, and it's not always the best idea to take the route that is the shortest distance. Seina, you should know that. The woman said in Seina's ear. Seina tried to get away again, but she threw him on the bed. Wah! Seina thought that the woman was going to get on top of him again, so he pulled the comforter back over him, but instead she began to talk without getting closer to the bed. How's everything going over there? He's going fine. I have him safely contained. Someone's on their way to bring him some food. Hakurin. He recognized the person's voice who was calling the strange woman. He realized he was okay and let out a sigh of relief. Okay, thank you for your patience. The woman ended communication and looked at Seina, a bit frustrated. You sure seem relieved. Have you finally worked up some courage? You know it's just the two of us in here. There's no need to be so tense. She moved to sit close beside Seina and posed to provoke him. Now, what do you plan to do with me? If this was Eri, I would be panicking, but I don't think she is serious. She doesn't feel like a serious threat. Her smell and appearance were perfect. He felt like he had wandered for days without water in the desert, and she was an oasis. He was stunned. He wanted to rush in search of water. He repressed that impulse desperately. Something about her was keeping his survival instincts from kicking in like it did with the other girls. He could have run right past her out of the room, but the thought didn't even come to his mind. Ho, I'll forgive you for making that face. The woman said happily as Seina got sweaty and blushed. The woman got up and went out of the room. Ho. He didn't know for sure, but he felt like the crisis had passed. However, while Seina was relieved, at the same time, he also had mixed feelings of disappointment. He took a deep breath to calm himself, and when he finally calmed down, he realized that he was still completely unaware of where he actually was. How are you doing? Swearin said. She had been standing in the room for a while. He lifted up his face to see her and was surprised. Aya! Seina jumped up and fell out of the bed. Fortunately, the floor was covered in a fluffy carpet, so there was some shock, but he didn't feel any pain. Are you okay? Swearin said as she came over to the bed and looked at Seina anxiously. Oh no, it's okay. You just surprised me. I didn't notice you were there. I'm sorry I surprised you. I said hello a few times. It's okay, I was a bit distracted. How long have you been here, Swearin? Since Seina-sama woke up. That long. Seina thought back to everything he saw since he had woke up, but he couldn't find a trace of Swearin's figure in his memory. The whole time. Yes, the whole time, see that? Swearin showed Seina his folded uniform. I was washing it for you in the bathroom. Only after seeing that did Seina realize that he was wearing something like a yukata. It was easier to check on your health without it, but your uniform's self-cleaning features seemed to have malfunctioned. It was pretty dirty, so I laundered it. Swearin gently placed the folded uniform in front of Seina. With a look of embarrassment on her face, she went into the washroom and closed the door. That was dangerous, so dangerous. The woman who was with Seina earlier had escaped to another room. She leaned against the wall and exhaled a big breath of air. Her face was flushed and she was sweating bullets. She seemed even more upset than Sana. You jackass. What the hell were you doing in there? And why do you look like you're going to vomit? Please don't vomit. Eri's voice came out of NB as it rushed to the woman. Her face came on the NB which began shouting in the woman's ear. I wasn't doing anything. Oh, really? Maybe I should tell Kuriko? Yo! Everyone, Mikami Kuramitsu is a prodigal educator who puts her hands on the students because she has a thing for hot young bodies. NB Eri shouted loudly towards the operators who were in the room behind her. Oh yeah, it's true I'm tellin' ya. And then I'm gonna tell Sito, Mitoto, and even her brother and Kuriko. I'll tell everyone. Mikami seethed in anger but kept her cool. She thought about what had come over her and remembered what Widow had said to her about Sana. Mikami-sama. While Mikami thought about it, NB's voice changed. For a moment, she thought that it might have been Eri's doing, but then she noticed NB started deforming. She hastily set a privacy field around them. I'm glad you managed to shut off Eri-sama's connection, but you can't expose your figure to the public so carelessly, Kurchi. NB shaped itself into Kurchi, who began crying. Really, but you and Sana and... With Sana. You know I can make Eri come back real quick. Mikami suspected Eri was using Kurchi so she would tell her the truth. Kurchi was like a cute puppy calling to a dog lover. Don't worry, I'm not planning to do anything. Mikami gently placed her hand on Kurchi's head and petted her. Okay. Kurchi obediently believed Mikami's words and nodded like a safe child. Mikami stroked Kurchi's head for a while. Kurchi, I don't plan to participate in the fight over Sana, but in the future when the dispute is settled, I don't intend to avoid crossing that road with him. She thought in her heart. Perhaps, no, I have no doubt, Sana will get a high-level adjustment like me and Eri. If that happened, he would live at least a tremendously long time, at least tens of thousands of years. That amount of time shapes a person in various ways. Especially in matters of love. If they're not careful, one thing can lead to another, and while they might not necessarily separate, they can easily lose trust in each other and forget how to communicate with each other. That was what Tenio tried to explain to Sana. Either way, I'm going to keep from getting stuck in this situation for now. As Mikami was thinking about such things, Kurchi looked up at her with eyes filled with tears. Oh, Mikami-sama. Actually, I have something to talk to you about. That bitch. Eri yelled while slamming her hands on the desk in the president's office room. I was stupid to expect results from a girl like Kurchi. Minaho blushed in embarrassment as she showed Washu a monitor feed of her mother. I see. She fell into the cracks of a dubious investigation into Sana and forgot all about how she planned to leak Sana's family's information to a spy at the academy. Washu said in a tone of slight criticism. Eri had forgotten to tell Washu that the plan had been carried out. Moreover, Washu was originally supposed to talk to Eri, not Minaho. Bo. Washu raised her right thumb and turned it down. Dong. A heavy, thick gold washtub pan fell from the sky with a loud noise on Eri's head. Eri fainted and collapsed on the desk. I apologize for the trouble. Minaho bowed. Well, I got to test that out so it's not all bad. That's why I'm sorry. I'd like to ask for you to ensure Sana's family security and interception of the enemy. I don't want this to get out of hand. I can think of ways to wrap this up very easily, but should I not use Ryoko? I leave the selection up to you. Well, I should make this amusing at least. Oh, also, what are you doing with that child on your shoulder? Minaho previously remembered that Washu had changed the upper part of her shoulder to crystal and sealed the astral of Widow in it. Oh, I am in the final stages of putting it in the eggshell. That was quick. It was just yesterday that you started carrying it around on your shoulder, Washu. It's a shame. I wanted to get to know her a bit better before I sent her off. It's not every day I have a new child. Washu regrettably stroked her shoulder that was made of crystal. As for the ship's main body, I completed the third stage of its growth in a culture tank. As soon as the prototype ship's test data comes in, I'll make my final adjustments. And then I can hand it over at any time. Minaho felt goosebumps appearing all over her body. A new ship from the legendary philosopher Hakubi Washu. the sister ship of Ryoki, who had the same power as Jurai's royal ships and successfully invaded Jurai, was going to be born. Is this really okay with Sito? Minaho let out a sigh. Ahoho, it was Sito Dano who said I should build the best ship I could. Mia. Ryoki hopped up and put her face on Washu's shoulder. What? What's up? Mia. Ryoki seemed happy and was talking to Washu's shoulder. Don't mind her, she is just talking to that girl. That girl. Ryoki, that's your sister. What kind of child do you think she will grow up to be? While embracing Ryoki, Washa laughed. I'd be happy if she grow up to be just as nice and good as Ryo. Ryo is nice and obedient. That meant that it would be more convenient to make her work for Jurai. But you never know. Seina attracts various troubles, even if it's just his ship becoming cranky. Washu sang at a nursery rhyme which ended in a rhyme about how Minaho was an old maid. Well, that's true. It's looking more and more like I won't ever be a bride. It's strange. Do you even really want to be a bride? Minaho was a woman who would make a good wife, and Washu had seen that she had many good motherly qualities. She was competent and quiet, and had a soft tenderness to her that was well-liked by men and women. However, her position as Sito's deputy officer kept all cowardly men away from her, and all competent men respected her too much. She was doomed to be a single woman. Of course. I just have to get married in my free time. So, when is that? Washu asked. I have no free time. Minaho muttered sadly. Well, I also have been single now for over 5,000 years if it makes you feel better. I appreciate it, but that's a special case. It's not any consolation. Well, that is the case. But won't Sito train a successor for you eventually? Once that happens, you won't need to take care of Sito alone. You should retire when that happens. Considering the difficulties in training a good successor, that seems too irresponsible. Well, I still think you should consider it. If Rei-chan has a boy, do you think she will let him be betrothed to me? Sorry, that child's fate has already been decided. He's a human sacrifice. Oh, is that so? I'm sorry, I shouldn't ramble on about my complaints. Well, I wish you luck. Mia. Washu picked Ryoki up off of her by her forefoot, and then she waved bye-bye and turned off communications. She couldn't imagine Ryoki understanding their conversation, but the Cabot's smile made Minaho's heart feel slightly warm. Kirchi, Envy, and Mikami were sitting to face each other on the sofa in the same room as before. That reminds me, I found a public email from your father. Public email was like a message board. When you didn't know the recipient's destination, it could be posted with an encryption that only the other party could decrypt. It's titled, Living in Your Own Way, so, I thought it would be a good idea for you to read it. Mikami said while diverting her eyes. Is it encrypted? No, it's open. I see. Since Kirchi, who was an idol, had disappeared, a lot of speculation on why she disappeared had spread in the streets. But after a while, everyone came to the same conclusion. It was probably because her creator was trying to make her his own wife and she had escaped. The open mail was a declaration of him waiving his ownership of her to fend off public criticism. Kirchi. Every child must someday become independent from their parents, and your father seems to think that you will never come back again. Oh! Does that mean that my father is still mad at me? Once you have nested, you must keep on living on your own. Your father is convinced that you have left, and that's going to take a lot of time for him to accept. Don't look back on your father's feelings, you have to give him time to accept them. Mikami said to Kirchi. Yes, I understand. Thank you. By the way, Kirchi, I'd like to ask you a question if it's all right with you. Yes, what is it? Kirchi raised her face with a nervous look. How's life going with Seina? What are you doing now? You don't have to push yourself if you don't want to tell me about it. Well, I've stopped having him visit on a nightly basis. Did something happen? No, Seina always makes me happy, and I'm really happy. But it seems like useless time for Seina, so I started thinking. Kirchi looked down to think a bit. I'm Seina's NB, too. I began to think that there are many other things that I can do for Seina. Fortunately, this NB is very high performance, so the things I can do are quite substantial. I can also access lots of high-level data using it, so you're helping Seina study his new environment? Yes, and well, of course, sometimes we meet in his dreams and talk about things too, Kerchi told her. She was embarrassed. That's a very good idea, Kerchi. Mikami admired her and felt a little bit jealous of Kerchi. She checked on the status of the operation she was conducting to distract her from that. Her goal was to draw a total of 35 people who were after Sena. All 35 had been captured. That's some good timing. Well then, Kerchi, I'll need you to return with Sena to the dock on the outer ring soon. Yes, understood. Oh! A monitor started by Kerchi showed Swearin and Sena hugging each other. Immediately Kerchi and Mikami ran out of the room. Are you okay? Sena was holding Swearin, who had fallen and collapsed onto the bed. Kerchi and Mikami had seen this moment and misinterpreted it. Unlike Mikami, this was not intentional but an accident. If everything was normal, the two would have separated from each other in a panic. But at this time, even after NB turned back into a ball and came in with Mikami, the two were still embracing. To be precise, Swearin was hugging Sena to hold herself up. Master, what is going on in here? Are you all right? NB cried out. Sena stared at Swearin as his face turned red. Huh? Mikami suddenly took NB and placed it gently between Sena and Swearin. And, suddenly Sena returned to sanity. He hurried to try to leave Swearin. However, Swearin's arms and legs had become entangled with his, and he couldn't let go. Swearin. At that time, Sena, NB, and Mikami also realized that Swearin was too out of it to let go. Boy, for the time being, leave her. I will return soon, Sena. Oh! Thank you for understanding about Swearin. Sena bowed to Mikami, who began to leave with NB. Oh, that's right, I haven't gotten your name, Sena said. Mikami slowly turned to him. To tell the truth, she was enjoying Sena's response to not knowing who she was. But she didn't want any strange misunderstandings to happen with Kiriko if Sena asked her who she was. Mikami was a bit worried, but she looked at him and said, I was going to tell you at a better time, but my name is Mikami Kuramitsu. Mikami said with a bright tone. Mikami Kuramitsu. But, this is my real body. Did you really think I was that old? I'm almost the same age as Sito. With her hand spread out on her chest, Mikami showed herself off to Sena as if she was boasting. Oh, that's right. Sena turned red in dismay. The behavior of this Mikami was unimaginable from that Mikami, who always seemed to be an educator who was ideal in both morals and intelligence. Did I disappoint you? No, but when you compare it to Arisama, it makes sense, I get it. You have to keep your public and private life separate. Mikami, who heard that, smiled gladly. Ahahaha. I would appreciate it if you thought of it like that. Hey, Sena, when you did bioenhancement, what did you think about it compared to how you were before? Were you surprised at how quick you recover from illness or injury? Whenever I get into this body from the elderly body, I definitely notice the difference. Somehow I understand. Oh ho ho, but remember, this is a secret to everyone. Mikami put her forefinger to her mouth and winked. She was glamorous and he was fascinated. Well, I must hurry, I have to go. Goodbye. Sena was taken aback by Mikami's lustrous appearance as she grabbed NB and left the room. NB went to the park to the bench where Kenneth and Rajo were staring at the sunset with a tired look. I see your attempts to pick up ladies have all failed. NB said in an insensitive tone that poured salt on the wounds of the two. Is Sena okay? I hope he's having a good time with that pretty lady, Kenneth said with a prickly tone as he watched the sunset. There was nothing wrong with him, he was just unconscious for a long time. Well, that's good news. I'm glad he's okay. A bell sound rung throughout the city. It was a signal that this district had officially entered the night. From this moment on, the festivities of the night would slowly begin, but for today, it meant the end of the holiday for Sena. Oh well, it looks like it's the end of Sena's vacation. I wish they had approved him for an overnight stay. The dormitory had to give special permission for Sena to stay at Kenneth's dorm overnight, and they hadn't, so Sena's vacation was over once the evening started. And of course, Kenneth and others had to go back to the dormitory. There's no helping it, all we can do is hope that Sena gets some good rest. I doubt he will get another break like this soon, his training period just ended. NB went back to Sena and they headed for the parking lot, using the reverse of the route they had taken in the morning. Sena came back to his lodgings in the outer ring within an hour of leaving. He entered the living room, the blinds began to open automatically, and Sena fell to the sofa which was illuminated by the light spread out on it. He looked at the time casually. It was still evening. Well, there's still time for dinner. There's a time difference. Do you want me to adjust my schedule for you? No, I don't mind. Sena raised the upper half of his body to stare out the blinds which were completely opened. The light outside illuminated the large living room brightly. Although it was inferior to a maid's house, it was still a luxurious and wide space. What is this room? NB, is this all my room? Yes, master. You're a captain, so they have given you a room fit for one. I wonder if such a luxury is okay. He was still just a captain in training. Wouldn't it be better to put me in a room fit for a regular crew member? The Kamedake is a confidential test ship, and you need an escort to watch over you at all times. Think of this as a way to keep you isolated. So, it's a luxury cage. Don't worry about it, they just want to make sure you're as comfortable as possible. I guess you're right. For the time being, I think I'll take a bath before dinner. Sena stood up from the sofa and noticed the view from the window with the shutters open. When he had stayed here the day before, he hadn't opened the shutter, he had just fallen asleep in bed right away. So he had no time to recognize what kind of place it was that he was given. Wow, how sci-fi. The huge outer ring intersected with the dark universe, and under that was a hierarchical building, a waterfall, a lot of trees and flowers were blooming. Not long ago, he couldn't have even imagined that he could see such a sight on Earth. Of course, he was able to see the superb view from his large bathroom, so Sena ended up taking an unexpectedly long bath before he went back and collapsed on his bed wearing a bathrobe. Is everything okay, master? I think I have luxury sickness. What sort of sickness is that? I'm kidding. It's just that I've been through quite a lot today. A lot of things are different now. There's no way that Principal Mikami is really like that. Sena remembered the appearance of Mikami while lying on his back in his bed. He compared the young, beautiful, and animated figure of her to the figure of the familiar principal he saw all the time. He couldn't think of any similarities besides their skin and hair, but then he realized that the way they both looked at things and smiled were similar. As Mikami was saying, this place isn't like where you're from, master. Here appearance is not really related to age. You can't judge anything from appearance really. People can change their appearance, gender, sexuality. In the past 100 years, age alteration has become popular as fashion or to convey a sense of wisdom. It's practically a necessity for young people in work like Mikami and Aries. She probably doesn't want perverts fawning over her when she's trying to run the academy. Oh, is that so? It's a way for her to come off as if she has wisdom and should be honored. Oh, I see. Master, when you hugged Ms. Swearin, what were you thinking? What? After Swearin fell down on him, Sena could not move because of how she had fallen on him. Of course Swearin was surprised. But for more than just that reason. Swearin has very little presence. She had a thin shadow, he could barely recognize her being there. It was like she was a person on a poorly tuned television rather than being a real person in the room with him. But, that time, Sena stared at his hands. I felt her heat and her breathing, the sound of the heart, and her smell. He was surprised, because he had never noticed any of that before. Indeed, she was just like Seto's other female officers, and her proportions reflected that. She was on par with the other girls. Did you do it? NB asked. Sena began to turn red. No, shut up. And why does it matter to you? Fine, you can tell me the details later. I wouldn't tell you even then. Sena got up when suddenly NB launched a monitor with Kariko on it. Sena-chan, it's almost time for dinner. Before that I have something I'd like to ask you about, is that okay? Swearin was sitting on the sofa with a confused face behind Kariko. Well then I guess I have no choice but to explain this, Sena replied.